Okay, I think it's 3 o'clock in Finland, so time to get started with the Simplebim product webinar on how to maximize BIM value with Simplebim. I'm Jarmo Kuusinen, Head of Partnerships at DataCubist, and I will be your host today. Today with me, here's also Mr. Jiri Hietanen, who's CEO and co-founder of DataCubist. Before Jiri takes the floor, few words of housekeeping. This session will last about 30 minutes, and the Q&A section is open. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in as the questions. So we will answer those questions in the end of the session, and if there's some questions that are left unanswered, we'll get back to those and get you the answers later on by email. We will record this session as well and make it available for you afterwards, so you can share it with your colleagues as well. Before the demo, a few words about the company. As mentioned, we are from DataCubist. It's a company who aims at solving data exchange problems in construction industry. It was founded in 2009 by Jiri and other co-founder Sakari Lehtinen. The main product of the company is Simplebim app. There's already 9 versions of the app. So the latest version is Simplebim 9. We'll be focusing today on the Simplebim and its applications. We have over 5,000 professional users in 32 different countries, and the Simplebim reseller network consists of 11 companies in 16 different countries. So they are there to serve you as well. Here's the list of Simplebim resellers. You can find the contact information from the website. Anyways, that's about it from my side. Thanks for joining. Next up, Jiri Hietanen, and he will tell you all about how to maximize BIM value with Simplebim.
Thank you, Jarmo. So I'll share my screen. And here we go. Okay, thank you for joining this webinar today. Yeah, my name is Jiri Hietanen, like Jarmo told you, and I have a fairly long history with BIM and IFC. I started with IFC in 1997 when it was the very beginnings of IFC, and have been working with IFC and data exchange, BIM-based data exchange ever since. And over the years, we have come up with the solution to maximize the BIM value, so that you can get out of BIM what everybody is promising that you would get. Okay, so this picture tells you the position of Simplebim. So on the right side, you want to do something with the models. You want to make quantity takeoff, cost estimating, procurement, scheduling, use it on the site, energy analysis, CO2 calculations, whatever. So you need a certain kind of model that you can do these things. But the reality is, the question is what you get. And what you get is not exactly what you need. And there are many different ways the people have been trying to solve this, like international standardization, BIM execution plans, and so on. And they all focus on, how would you make the left side be exactly what you need on the right side. But our solution with Simplebim is the normalization solution, so that you are the one who kind of organizes this data, puts it into shape so that it's fit for purpose, so that you can do with the models what you need to do. So when you think about Simplebim, the functionality is, the basic functionality is very straightforward. You import an IFC model, then you improve the IFC model in Simplebim, and then you export a better IFC model. That's the basic idea. And what better means in different is different in different cases. So better means that it's fit for purpose, that you can use the model for what you want to do with it. So this is the basic idea of Simplebim. And when you think about this normalization process, the first step is to normalize manually. So you have the Simplebim user interface, and you do the normalization steps in the user interface. But when you want to make this a part of your standard process, then normalizing it manually every time isn't really the solution. So you start automating. And the first step in automating is using the Simplebim templates. And but the templates are used on the desktop in the you know, they can be used inside the Simplebim application for automating things. And then the next step is then go one step further and automate using scripts. And with scripts, you don't have the user interface. You just, you know, you have an input and you have an output, and the processing happens behind the scenes in between. But then when you reach step 3, then you start having the real benefits, because you can really make this part of your standard process, this normalization. So what skills do you need for doing these operations? So first you have a model. So with Simplebim, you can import the IFC model, you can merge different IFC models, and you can align models, you know, basically edit the placement of the models so that they fit together. So you start with the model. You have it in Simplebim. Then you always make some object selections. Like you want to do something and you need a selection of objects that are target of what you want to do. So you can select kind of ad hoc, select in the 3D and so on. And you can create groups, you can create classifications, like HVAC systems, spatial zones. And then we also have locations, which means kind of you know, the physical location of a building, the objects like a apartment or a concrete pour or construction section and so on. So you basically have a selection of objects made. And then you have different operations, and you use this selection in the operation. Like the very basic thing, you import an IFC model, and then you just select some objects, and then you make a new IFC file containing only those objects you selected. But then we have BIM sheet, which is our Excel integration. You could colorize things like these are my exterior walls, I want to colorize them green, and these are my interior walls, I want to colorize them blue, so that you have a visual indication of the data. You can edit the data, you can get enrich, means you can add data, you know, by deriving it from existing data or getting it from external data sources like Excel. Then you can edit the model tree, the containment. You can transform coordinates and so on if you are, for example, doing site surveying and so on. So this is step 1. This is what you do in the Simplebim user interface. Then the other things are basically what you need is you need to know how to use the Simplebim user interface. You know, 3D navigation, drag and drop. What we have these workspaces and so on. So you need to know how to do these things in the user interface. It's not very complicated, and in next section I'll show you how to do it. Then we go to the second step, which is the templates. The templates are basically about creating object selections and applying operations, using those selections in different operations. So this is how you automate things. You make a rule-based selection, and then you have an operation for this selection. And then the last step, the scripting. There you go. In the previous steps, you were always in the boundaries of one model, which could be a combined model, but it's still in Simplebim one model. With the scripts, you basically say, I want to import this architectural model. I want to merge the structural model to it. I want to apply a template that, for example, colorizes the models in a certain way. I want to run a tool that calculates quantities for the objects. And then I want to export a new IFC file. So this is the role of the script. And then you don't open the Simplebim user interface at all. You just run the script. Okay, so this demo, the main thing for today is first I'm going to show how to use the Simplebim user interface for doing this normalization. Then I'm very quickly going to show how to do it with the template. We look inside the template so you get an idea of what this template actually means, but it's not really a demo about using templates. And then normalizing using the script. We have a sample script. You can run that one, look inside it, see what it's like. And then when we run the script and open the model again in Simplebim, we can see the result and the value of the normalized model compared to the original model that we started with. So this is what you are going to see today. So next I'm going to jump into the application. And Simplebim is a very capable application. You can handle very big models and complex data and so on. But for the sake of the demo, we are now using a very simple model and some very simple examples of this normalization process. But we have the 3D here, so you can rotate, zoom, and so on, the basic stuff. And we try to make the 3D such that it's like any other 3D. So there's no kind of, we didn't try to reinvent the wheel there. But if you get lost in the navigation here in the lower right-hand corner, we have this icon, this eye, and click on it, and you get this quick help for how to navigate the 3D and what are the shortcut keys for different operations and so on. So this is very useful if you get lost, if you don't remember something. But it should be really straightforward. The only really different thing about our 3D is that you can drag and drop objects out of the 3D. So in this, when you open Simplebim, you get this view where you have this not decided, what we call bucket, included bucket and excluded bucket. So if I wanted to make an new IFC file that contains only one wall, I could take the wall here in the 3D, click the left mouse button, keep it down a little while until the header of this bucket turns this greenish color, drag and drop from this one bucket to this other bucket. So this wall now disappeared from here and appeared over here. And you can see we have one included object. So if I now make an IFC export, the exported IFC will only contain this one object. So this is special to Simplebim, that you can drag and drop objects from the 3D palette. Otherwise, it's very, very familiar. The other very useful thing is we have this quick select. If I select from here, for example, object class, and now I go over the same object, it recognizes there is a wall under the mouse cursor, or mouse pointer, so it selects all the walls in the model. So now if I do the same drag and drop over here, now I dragged and dropped all the walls over here. And now if I make an IFC export, I will get an IFC model which has all the walls. So you get the idea. You get the idea there. So the good approach in normalization is first step is to kind of clean the model of everything you don't need. And you can do it also from over here. Like if we have furnishing elements we don't need, you could take them from the objects palette and drag and drop them from here over to the excluded. And now all the furnishing elements are excluded. And now if I make an IFC export, there will be no furnishing elements in this exported IFC file. So that's the basic thing. And when you look at the data in the models, they are often not perfect. Like if we have a space and then we have the names, we have the space names. Then, for example, we have some meeting rooms, and then we have some other meeting rooms that are using abbreviation. And if you want to use this in some kind of analysis or so on, then it would be better to have a model where you don't have these differences. So you could go into the original model and change it, but it's really much easier to do it over here. So I go into the I go into our property editor. And I select here our spaces. And then we select the space name. And then over here, I can just drag and drop this value on top of this other value. And now I have 3 meeting rooms. And now when I make an IFC export, this is what I will get in the IFC model. And you can do the same for other cases, like if we have some walls and we have the wall type, and the wall type isn't very, it's 150, 315, it's not very good to type, but we can also see over here that this time we have in the name property, we have these better values. So I can just take this name and drag and drop it over here. And now when I make an IFC export, these will be my wall types. So these kind of operations, it's like you are not editing the design solution, you are editing kind of the data structures. You have the same data, but you are putting this data in a different property. Or then if you have these spelling mistakes, like this should actually be this, and this should also be this. And then you have a clean list of values when you export and use it downstream. All right. And finally, if I show shortly the location editor, so this is something that allows you to define these locations that I mentioned. So if I import, this works in a way that we have these location prisms, which I import here, which in this case are like shoeboxes, but they don't have to be shoeboxes. They can be any shape or form. And then I can kind of divide these objects in the model into these locations very easily. So I just click here, resolve and split. There's a lot of settings, but I'll just use these defaults. And then it's splitting the model. So, and if I select all of these objects, so I have these locations, and if I isolate, you can see that these are the objects in my location A, and this is my location B, And you can see there's many ways of controlling it, like for example, that doors and windows are not split even if they are on the boundary of locations and so on. So these are kind of cool things that you can do to make your models consistent. For example, if you were in a construction company, you don't have to tell the designer to divide the models into sections. You can do it yourself, and it's much more efficient, much more reliable. So, and then in the end, you get reliable models for use in your downstream operations. So, but if I take this here, the clean one, then we have the templates. So how do we automate all these kinds of things that I just showed you? So our templates are actually Excel files. They are pretty easy to edit, and you can use any Excel techniques over here, like using formulas and so on. So one of the basic things in the normalization process that almost everybody is doing, that they are defining their own property set. So the benefit is that when you define your own property set into the model, you define the properties and the names of the properties, and you know exactly what these properties mean. So here we are defining some new properties over here. Then here we are adding these properties to the model, to different object classes. Here we are copying information that already exists in the model into these properties. We are doing some find and replace operations, like I showed you in the user interface, like changing this abbreviation meeting MDG to meeting, and changing EX1 to EXD1. The same things I did in the user interface, but here they have to be rule-based. You have to formulate a rule, do this find and replace, copy this data from this property to that property. But it's not really very complicated. Then we can set up modeling validation rules, like the model must have walls and spaces, and then the space names must be from this list. And for example, the space number must have a unique value. This kind of validation rules can be set up in templates. We can do enrichment, like here we have the space numbers, and then we can say who is the user of this space and what is the condition of this space. This is just, of course, very simple data, but you get the idea. You can say, you can add new data into your IFC model in this technique. And then finally, we are creating some zones, spatial zones. What are the spaces of company A, B, and C, and D? And they are then written into the model as IFC zones. So again, very quickly, but you get the idea of what you get the feeling of these templates and what kind of things you can do with them to automate the process. So if I take our template from over here and drag and drop it on the model, it applies the template. Okay, and here you can see that it included some objects, excluded some other objects. It set these validation rules, like for spaces. So if I say, so the space names, we don't have a break room, but we have break here, so I could change it. Now it passes the validation. Space numbers, they are not all unique. We have several places where 2 or 3 spaces have the same number. Here actually 4 spaces have the same number. So it's easy to validate the model. And if we look at the properties, the space was a good example. If I group them by property set, so here we have our own property set, which has this information. And for example, the information about the user, what are the common spaces that we had in the enrichment, they are here, and the conditions. These spaces are in good condition, fair condition, bad condition. So this is data we added in the template. Yeah. It's much more efficient and actually more reliable than doing the same things manually in the user interface. Okay, so this is okay, but what about the scripts? When you know what the end result must be like, what your normalized end result must be like, and then you have defined these rules in the templates, how do you get to this end result? Then there is really not much point in always opening the Simplebim user interface, so we can look at the scripts. So we have this SBS, which is Simplebim script. So I open that one in Notepad, and it's quite simple. So it says import this small office file, then merge these location prisms, what I did in the user interface. Then run this split geometries tool, which I also did in the user interface. Then apply this template, which I also did in the user interface, and then export the result to a new IFC file. So again, quite simple stuff. And then we have this batch file that basically just runs this script file. So I just double click on my batch file. And then it starts Simplebim and starts the processing, imports the file, and then it merges the other file to it. And then it runs this location tool, this model splitter, and then it applies the template. And finally, it exports a new IFC file. And now it's done. Okay. And we can see that there is a new IFC file, small office normalized, that was done on this, well, a minute ago, 27 minutes past 3. So this is the IFC file produced by this script. So if I open now this file in Simplebim, the one we just produced by running this script. Then we have the result here. And as you can see, we have also these locations. Oh, sorry. No, I did it differently, sorry. So that this template already put that information here in this section, that we have section A, section B, section C, and section D. And then we have the story information also here. So on. And this is already much better than the original one. We have these zones. Here we have the spaces for company A, B, and C. And then we have here also groups for these different sections if you wanted them as groups in the IFC model. So this is much better. But when I promised in the beginning that we look at the benefits of doing all this, then when you have normalized the model and you have your own property set, or otherwise you have normalized, which properties you use, and you have done all this cleanup and so on, then you can start using the data in a different way, which sets you a world apart from these IFC structures that you see here and all this complexity that you have in these models. So if I open a Simplebim workspace here, I open this Simplebim workspace, and then we can even put. So now you have a different. This is still Simplebim, but this is the normalized model, and we have a table here where you have the there's the walls, we have a section, and then we have floors, and then we have wall types, and then the individual walls. But we always have, for example, the areas, the summary of the areas. But here you don't have IFC this and IFC that. You just have section, story, element type. And if you want to see it the other way around, we have this kind of walls in this section, on this floor, and so on. So you get the idea. All the rooms that we have the users, and we see what is the condition of the spaces for this user. Well, too bad, too good. For this user, or if you are not interested in the condition over here, then we can just look at the users, what kind of spaces they have. For example, we take space name here. So these have offices, but in the common, But you get the idea. It's really, really simple, and you can only have this kind of simplicity in using the models if you have normalized them. And you can only have this kind of simple user interfaces, and you can only build automation on top of your models if they are normalized. Because if they're not, then you are always confronted with all the complexity and all the different alternatives that the data could be here or there or these kind of problems. And the normalization is solving that. And you can automate it with Simplebim. Okay, so I think I have used my half an hour, and now if anybody has questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
There is actually one question about BIM sheet. There's a mention that reading one of the LinkedIn tips. I think there was a mention about the BIM sheet, and the question is about if it's the same thing or different thing than these templates, Excels that were just.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a different thing. I understand how it can be a bit confusing because they are both using Excel, but it's basically in the templates, the Excel is the user interface for defining this automation. And I can show you the BIM sheet here. So here we have the Add BIM sheet button. So I can take this BIM sheet and, for example, dock it over here. And then I could take my spaces that we looked at just now, take my spaces and drag and drop them into the BIM sheet. And then I choose which properties I want to see. So let's group by property set, and I take my own properties over here. And I want to see them in the order of user, condition, that's space name, space number, like this, for example. So now I have this data in, it's basically Excel. So you can use Excel formulas and so on. And for example, you could calculate the sum of all the offices and so on just using Excel formulas. But the nice thing is that this is connected to the model. So if I select here, I'll try to find, I'll change the visualization to reveal. So you can see that if I select a row here in Excel, it highlights the corresponding object in the 3D. So this Excel is connected to 3D. And then if I said, for example, this is actually, let's say it's company X. So I write in Excel that is company X. I hit enter. And now you see in the BIM data that it's changed to company X. So you can edit the data in your BIM model using Excel. there's other things you can do. You can save this. You can save this as an Excel file for further processing, or you can do enrichment, like you can put it into Excel, fill new data in Excel, and get the data back to the model, and enrich the model with new data, and so on. But this is also kind of highlights the point that also this BIM sheet technology is much more useful when you have a normalized model, because then you have then you have clear property names, you know what they mean, and it's easy to make the selections what you want to see in this BIM sheet and so on. So this is the difference. The template is for defining the automation rules, and then the BIM sheet is about the data in the models, how to organize it, how to edit it, how to add new data, and so on.
Yes, thank you. Exactly. BIM sheet is basically an Excel spreadsheet integration with Simplebim. It's actually a feature that's really very much liked by our users. That was actually the last question. Is there something, Jiri, you still want to add, or do we start wrapping up this call?
I think we have a last slide over here. So if I showed a lot of things very quickly, just to get through it, just to make the point about the value of the normalization and that how it can be done, and that it's not really that complicated. But if you want to learn more about BIM theory, then we have a blog with articles about like what is BIM quality and so on. We have tutorial videos and a good support site. If you don't find the solution, you can always email us at support@simplebim.com. Then there is, I showed you in half an hour this stuff, but basically we have a half-day training about going in more details into what you can do in the Simplebim user interface and what are all the different possibilities of Simplebim. And then another half-day training for the automation, the templates and the scripts, so that you really know how to use them. And then when you take Simplebim, really take Simplebim into use in your organization, then we can help you with that process as well. But that was the end of this short presentation.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Before wrapping up this call, I'm taking this moment to remind you or bring up these few case studies that we have published. They are available on our website. If you want to have a look how Simplebim is applied by some of our customers, here's 4 of them. So just go ahead and navigate to simplebim.com, and you can find these stories in there from the references section.
Yeah, when I was saying that Simplebim can be used on a larger scale, and this is what I showed is just a very small sample. The Baylor case is, I think they had 30,000 concrete pours with 50 million rebars that they managed with Simplebim.
Yes, these are super interesting case studies, so please go ahead and have a look at them. Anyways, I think it's time to wrap up this one. Thank you very much for your time. Hope to see you in the upcoming events, and feel free to reach out to us if there's some things that we can help you with, or you want to know more about the product. Thanks a lot. and have a great summer. Over and out.